box, who is our membership manager. So if you've got any questions or you want to ask anything, then feel free to chat in there, and Karen will give me a shout if necessary. Yeah, I'm going to try and share my screen. Can you see this? Yeah, cool. Just loading up. So I'm not sure if I'll just hang on a minute. If you think that you're able to, how well you're able to engage girls at the moment in your school council. If you've got a 1, 2, or 3, you think you're able to involve them very well, somewhat, or not very well. Feel free to post that. I think we've already introduced ourselves and said hi. So today we're going to look at creating opportunities to be heard and raising girls' voices in our school councils. Obviously, kind of as teachers, educators, and as smart school councils, we want everyone to be involved. The whole idea is that everyone's involved. There is an argument definitely that there could be another session on raising boys' voices in school councils, but today we're going to look at girls. So, you know, we've got a couple of quotes here, and I thought we'd think about why we're going to look at, you know, why do we want to raise girls' voices in school councils, why this topic? And, you know, there's some statistics here that are quite hard hitting, I think. You know, 19 out of 193 UN member states, there's never been more than 19 female leaders at any one time. That's less than 10%. There's this idea that women are just 1 in 4 of the political representatives around the democratic world. And Maria Miller, kind of, her thoughts are that we need to, you know, women are needed for kind of sound governance, and for there to be meaningful human rights around the world. And the UN have spoken about the fact that, you know, young people aren't really that involved in politics. They're underrepresented. There are lots of reasons for that. I'm sure you know the reason, some of the reasons. We can all think of some of the reasons, but actually in that group, young women are there are even fewer of them involved. You know, less than 1% of them, of parliamentarians, are young women. So it's, you know, there's quite a lot in the background going on. And there was some research done by a master's student at King's College London. And, you know, she found that women had an equal majority in only 4 parliaments around the world. And I, you know, to be honest, you know, it's quite surprising, perhaps the countries that she came up with that happened. She said they weren't the ones that first came to my mind, and that actually global female representation is still below 30%. And she kind of said that 30% was a benchmark for actually women to be having a significant impact as a group, and rather than just a few women perhaps having a say in what was happening around the world. And again, her idea is that, you know, women need to be represented to make sure that democracy functions and that, you know, women's interests perhaps are addressed in Parliament. So here I've just got a short video with girls talking about what they think and why they think it's important for girls to have a say. So I don't know if you want to share any ideas about what they say about why it might be important to them, to young girls, for their voices to be raised.
When I look at the news, as soon as I see
the volumes disappeared, Gabby.
Ooh. Let's see who will just. Let's see if I can make it work. Sorry, you're going to find out that IT is not my strong point.
I mean, it might just be my end. Samantha might hear it at hers, but I can't hear it at mine.
Can you hear it at all, Samantha?
No, I can't hear it.
No. No, it's okay. Let me see if I can get that. Oh, here we go. Share sound. Okay, I'll try this. Let's see.
When I look on the news, it's mostly I see men politicians
working?
speaking, and I hardly see any women's politicians speaking.
Because there are no, well, next to no women in Parliament, you don't see a lot of young girls putting an old man and going, that's what I want to do when I grow up. That's just not what happens, really.
There just aren't enough women in politics for women to feel like it's a career for them and to be inspired by the women politicians.
Parliament's meant to be the body that represents everyone in the UK, so if there's mainly men and no women, and how are women meant to be represented?
There definitely needs to be more female representation, because if there's no women in politics, then how can we get policy decisions which will represent our interests and our rights? It's a completely one-sided picture.
I think it's vitally important that we have more female MPs in Parliament. I mean, women make up 50% of the population, so why shouldn't their voices be heard and make up 50% of the cabinet? It makes sense.
I think that women should have more important jobs than they do have now.
It's really important that there's more women in power and in Parliament, in politics, in government, so that other people, other women, other men, young girls, young men can see that it's okay for women to have these positions of power.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the chat box, so I don't know, was there anything there that I needed to know? Did anyone pick out any reasons why it might be important to raise girls' voices to the young girls, or did you?
I've posted a lot here. I think it might be worth asking Samantha herself. I think a few things that I thought was that the below 30% was just really shocking for me. That's considered like a benchmark for even just to have an impact, and it's not even getting reached. You know, it's not even halfway, but just 30% is needed as an impact, and we're not even getting that. I think the idea, like the young girls who are like, well, if I feel like I'm able to lead, I need to see this happening around me. I need to see women and girls speaking and leading in positions of power, which they're not currently seeing. And just, yeah, normalising. I think one of the last girls said, I thought that was really important, just normalising that it's normal for girls to speak in councils and to be in leadership opportunities, rather than it feeling like something unique and unusual. But yeah, you might want to ask Samantha herself, see if she wants to chat.
Do you have anything you want to add, Samantha, or feel free to speak, or put it in the chat box, or speak if you like, or... I mean, I really, yeah, what stood out to me was similar ideas to Karen, you know, the idea that girls obviously felt that they had a lack of role models and that it wasn't the norm for women to be involved in those political conversations. The idea that women, again, that their interests aren't perhaps going to be represented if they don't have a say in these discussions, if they don't have a kind of chair at that table. And like you said, the actual representation, the fact that we're not even hitting the 30% is, you know, it's quite shocking, really. See if I can move this on. Oh. So, you know, what does this have to do with schools? Because obviously this is the wider political situation, but today we're thinking about your school councils. Well, there's this idea, Maria Miller, who's an MP, said that, you know, for women to be involved in politics, we need girls to develop these skills and the confidence while they're at school. So we need girls in school to become involved so that they can then become those women in politics. And, you know, UNICEF, they did some research and they said that, you know, girls need to be better included, and they need to be included in things, in the decisions about things that affect their environment, which obviously is educators in schools an environment where these young girls are spending a lot of time. So it's about them having a say. So I've got another video here about kind of raising girls to speak up. It's just a quick one. Let's see if we can hear the sound. Here we come.
Today's letter is from Rebecca. Dear Girls Leadership, no offense, but aren't you setting girls up to get labeled sassy and be punished for being too outspoken? Don't you realize the blowback women get when they assert themselves? I don't get why I should work so hard to tell my daughter to speak up when she's so convinced it won't work out and that other girls will get mad at her. Well, Rebecca, I can't argue with you. I mean, we're obviously living in a society where women and girls get punished for speaking their minds. We get called all kinds of awful names, and it's definitely enough to make you want to lock your kid away and not have her deal with any of that. But we cannot give up on teaching girls to speak their minds. When a girl knows how to say what she needs, her whole world opens up. I mean, it's like you can figure out what matters to you when you can speak up. You can figure out how you want to change the world, whether that world is your relationships or society. One thing that we hear from girls all the time is when they do stand up to their friends, even if it doesn't work out, it actually feels so good to have done it, that they feel proud of themselves for having just spoken their minds, and there is value in that, whether or not it works out for you. Another thing you may have noticed, Rebecca, is that sometimes when you talk to your daughter and you say something calmly to her, like, hey, would you mind cleaning your room? She goes, why are you screaming at me? And you're like, I wasn't, but okay. What's up with that? So that's happening so much with girls because they don't have that comfort with listening to assertive communication. They haven't flexed that muscle of hearing people be direct with them. And that's equally problematic because when girls can't hear other people being direct, it makes them shrink away from the world and it makes them unable to internalize really important information that they need to hear, like clean your room. So create a culture at home where people are being assertive, where your daughter has the opportunity to flex the muscle of not just speaking up, but also hearing other people do it. We have to remember that no matter what the culture tells girls and women about speaking up, being able to say what you need and find the people who can handle that is a critical part of a whole, rich, happy life. Our daughters deserve it. Do you have more questions for us? Visit us at girlsleadership.org.
Playing again. So again, it's this idea perhaps of raising girls' kind of confidence so that they want to get involved in the discussions so that it becomes the norm for girls to be kind of seen get involved in these discussions. There was some research, and I think I skipped over this one actually. In 2008, the Girl Scout Research Institute, they found that a third of girls didn't want to be leaders because they were worried about being laughed at or making people cross with them or coming across as bossy. And it's kind of this stereotypical idea of girls perhaps, this henpecking idea that sometimes can happen. There was research done by Girls Leadership who made that video that between the ages of 10 and 13, girls' confidence and voice drops by 30%. So perhaps this is something in our schools that we might see a change maybe. I don't know if you're in a primary school, maybe you see a difference in kind of the age groups of girls who want to get involved in the discussions, or maybe there's a difference between primary and secondary. That might be something that we can be aware of, or that you're aware of. And there might be a difference maybe between all girls schools, how willing girls are to get involved, and mixed schools. I'm not sure, but that's something perhaps to think about. Let's skip this one. So how can we raise girls' voices in our smart school councils? Obviously specific to us, what we can do. Well, during meetings, we can look at the roles that girls are taking on. So are they leading in the meetings? Obviously in your data, when you look in your history tab, in your class meeting data, look back through meetings, you can see a girl's actually leading. Are they taking on that role in the class meetings, or are they always kind of sticking to your traditional note taker? Or perhaps not taking a role at all? Maybe they're not getting involved at all. Are any of your action teams created by girls? Obviously, you'll have an awareness of what action teams are happening at school, from your progress board, from who's applying for them. Are any of them led by girls? If they're not, is there a way that you could kind of change that? Could an action team maybe be set up to create a girls leaders group in school to give girls, for students to look at how girls could become more confident to take a lead in school? Also with comms teams, in your own comms team, are girls given jobs across the different roles? Obviously, a lot of schools, there are more than one student taking a part in each role. So girls, maybe they're not kind of just doing the traditional maybe display boards. Not that there's anything wrong with being in charge of the progress board, it's a fab job to be involved in, but maybe also are they taking responsibility in roles like class meeting tool leader? And they get, actually taking on those techie jobs and updating the class meeting tool. Perhaps maybe are they question finders? Are they helping children set up action teams? So just about kind of getting girls involved in all the different roles that we have. This was an idea in some research. It was about kind of training pupils so that they could feel able to articulate their views. So I guess with the Smart School Council programme, as students are leading that, they're building their confidence to communicate with adults in school. If girls are taking on roles like staff liaison, where they need to go around and speak to the staff in school and make sure everyone's holding their meetings, or question finder, again, where girls are going around speaking to other students, other members of staff to find the questions they're going to ask. Again, this can be building their confidence so that it becomes more of a norm for girls to be involved in these discussions in school. And then there's just a final point really with your Smart School Council. Research has shown that middle class girls are often the most confident in speaking to teachers and staff in school environment, in that kind of what they see as a safe environment. So maybe looking at your comms teams and data from class meetings, action teams, just making sure that there's a diverse variety of girls involved as well. So not just girls, but girls from all different socioeconomic backgrounds too. So we have an experience from one of our members who's very kindly sent in some information for us. Ben couldn't be here today, but he's sent in some of the methods that he uses to make sure that girls are involved in his Smart School Council and that their voices are raised. Gascoigne Primary is a large primary school, one of the largest in the country. They're on 2 sites and they have a 5-form entry. It's pretty big. They have 2 comms teams, one on each site, and they have 15 children in each. And they select their comms teams in 2 different ways. They have the process where some children, if they want to represent their class, they can present to class and be chosen in the class. So like a kind of more regular democratic election process. But they also have 10 students in each comms team who are chosen by himself and the senior management of the school. And they look on the registers and they look at children who would benefit from being on the communications team. So perhaps would help their communication skills. When they select their communications team, they make sure that they have an equal number of boys and girls on there. So maybe 7 of one, 8 of the other. And they like to have an equal balance of boys and girls so that in their comms team meetings, they have thorough, non-biased discussions. So that kind of ties in with what UNICEF said about, the importance of everyone being represented. Gascoigne, they're making sure that they have girls and boys represented. They also find that it's really good having an equal balance of genders in their communications team, so that when other pupils in the school want to approach someone in the comms team, and he said at their school, they often go and find members of the comms team at break times and lunch times to talk about the school council and voice their opinions. By having boys and girls on the team, it means that students are able to approach whoever they feel more comfortable speaking to, and they find that makes their students more willing to be heard, really, and everyone to get involved. So thank you, Ben. So creating opportunities to be heard, raising girls' voices, some top tips that we have from our members and from ourselves. Try to have a fully inclusive, well-balanced comms team. This creates opportunities for all children to be heard because, like Ben said about Gascoigne Primary, all the children feel more comfortable. They can pick who they feel more comfortable talking with. The next point was one from a member in the Facebook group, so thank you for sharing this. They said that they have a culture in school where action and change starts with student voices. They specifically said they tell their students that girl power starts with your voice. So I think that's a really nice idea, that by speaking out, that's how change will happen, and that's how they encourage girls to be involved. Create opportunities for girls' voices to be heard in your class meetings. So you could use a tally chart or have a tool like a coin, so you could, toss for heads for girls to speak, tails for boys to speak, just to make sure everyone's getting involved again. And then this is something that I always say in launch meetings. Every time you have a class meeting, you might not necessarily act on every single point that's raised, because you'll never stop creating actions, but it's important for us to kind of recognise issues that are raised in class meetings. So that's one of the things about the progress board, where there's that area where it says, things we can't do. So again, this can make pupils, including girls, feel more confident that they might say something and it might not be perhaps something we can do, but at least it's there and it's recognised. So I think the programme helps with that. Encourage girls to take leadership roles in your school councils. So leading class meetings, heading up action teams can be a way for girls to be taking the lead and being heard. And also, try to vary the roles in your Smart School Council that girls take on. Encourage them to take on more leadership roles like your class meeting tool leader, and more techie roles like that, where they're kind of going on and updating your class meeting tool that are sometimes traditionally assumed to be more male roles. Okay, we obviously won't have breakout rooms, but if you have any questions you would like to ask, feel free to either post in the chat box or speak, that's fine.
Hi, Kerry. I really enjoyed that. There's some great points you made there. I just wondered if Samantha, I mean, she might not want to, which is absolutely fine, but she's posted here that she says she needs to look at how the council is formed next year. And I don't know whether that's from something that you said, or whether it's like a question related to specifically girls' voices, or whether it's something different. I didn't know whether Samantha wanted to chat about that.
Yeah, we've just had a vote, so it's one person from each class. So over the whole school, we've not considered boys and girls. It's just been each class has had their own vote. So I need to consider the ratio of boys and girls more next year and try and do it differently. Maybe a boy from one class, I don't know. And a girl from the other. I'll have to think. We're too parliamentary.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, and it's something that sometimes I think we don't always think about, but it's nice that we are now. I know that some schools use like an application process, and that might maybe help with making it more gender balanced.
Yeah, could do that. I'll have to think for next September.
It's easy to overlook though, isn't it? I've done it myself, when you just don't think those things. I'm thinking, like when Amanda was saying, I was thinking back of my school councils, and sometimes there might be like 2/3 boys and 1/3 girls, and that's probably because we had a lot of kind of very confident boys who were like, yeah, I'll do it, I'll step forward, I'll take it. So you kind of you almost feel a bit led by that excitement and encouragement. It's like, yeah, we're getting somebody on the council. But when you mentioned before about those girls, like a whole diverse range of girls, I think sometimes I in my head I'm getting pictures of those girls who perhaps were the girls who were a little bit quieter, but actually they would have been great on the council if I'd just found a way to reach out to them, or to actually say, we're going to have this many girls, this many boys, or maybe have a private chat to them before to encourage them, and perhaps, like you said, make it an application process rather than like an election process, because they wouldn't have stood up and talked and got people to vote for them. They wouldn't have done that. But actually, if we're doing an application process, would those girls that I'm thinking of had sat down and wrote an application? I think they probably would have, because they were quite good with doing that. But the thought of standing up and explaining to people, vote for me, and almost it feeling a bit like a popularity contest, there's no way they would have applied. It's really made me think, actually. Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I just agree with everything you've just said about the girls.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I was at school, I don't think I would have stood at the front and stood for election, but I might have applied with a, with an application form maybe. So, oh, good. You have to let us know how you get on next year, Samantha.
Will do. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Are there do you have any other questions, Karen, or Samantha, obviously, if you have any other questions?
I don't have any.
You're right. Well, I realise that it's after school, so everyone want to get away. But thank you very much for coming, Samantha. If you want to post anything in the chat box about one thing you'll take away from today's CPD, that would be amazing. And obviously, if you want to stay and chat and ask anything, feel free.
Samantha's put the same, basically the same as what I put. It's interesting we're agreeing on that, Kerry. Both of us have taken away that kind of idea to think about the actual route that they get on the school councils in the first place, that considering that application process for the quieter girls who will find it so much more scary to actually stand up and talk at the front. Thanks for that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming, Samantha, for attending today. And hope you'll take something away from it. Thank you, Karen, for manning the chat box for me.
Thank you. Yeah.